thing that came to me like that, and I don't really normally explain everything, but it was like a shaking in my hand, and I had to write this whole thing out, which is pretty big, by the way, so buckle in. Before, and then as soon as my hand stopped shaking, the song finished on the page. So I thank as well my own ancestors for bringing it through.
I summon you now, Irish, gather round the fire. I call upon you now, reignite the flame required. Bunduka si, an glaib salas, gliva mid earthanish. No longer can we agree to disagree. If you claim any ounce of Irish ancestry, I'm calling on you, 30% of this so-called Australian population, to ignite the fire in you from past generation. You were shipped here through waves of famine and rebellion. Your DNA did not drown. You are the survivors of oppression. That ancestral voice inside you may need some awakening. But as I walk this land, my God, I hear your ancestors. They're screaming, they're screaming. They didn't have the chance to scream out for their own injustice. They silently watched their own fall. Please be the voice that they lost. And please do not tattoo that leprechaun on your skin or use our nation as an excuse for another drink. Those Irish jokes, you know the ones, they're not a badge of honor. They're systematic abuses attempt at human. Your Irishness is not the green that you garnish on St. Patrick's Day. You've been sold that so your cellular memory may not resurface in this way. Please do not think that because 3 generations back you come from Cork, that I'm your Irish girl and therefore I'll be what your Australian Irishism expects, and you do not get to call me your Irish sister. If your call also tries to inform me that all lives matter, and you certainly have no right to have our growl in your cree if you do not recognize that the killing of black bodies is a disease kind of like the potato blight. I know you investigated that and learned that sometimes people take history and rewrite it, let their narrative reign supreme, and they teach it and on it goes. This we know, so now we know. We're not allowed to deny that there always was and continues to be indigenous genocide when your ancestors' famine was designed by the very same empire. More 1 million starved to death on Irish land, choked by the Crown's greedy hand. 2 million more as refugees, discarded as traditional landowners, removed from country. And does this not sound familiar? Is this not the same simply stated cry from our indigenous brothers and sisters? Can we please not be choked when in crown hands? Can we please not be choked off our native lands? You're the daughters of rebels. You are the sons of poets. Remember who you are, your ancestors. They know it because you, of anyone, should understand these wails of stolen generations, because they practice that shit on your great-great-grandmother's generation. Earl Grey schemed a way to ship off our fertile 8-year-old girls, enslaved to ex-convicts to use as their populating whores. Coffin ships only ever landed with a 5 out of 10 famine body. That's 50%, which is how much more likely indigenous are to be arrested than die in custody. And do you not hear that ancestral cry to your DNA? Do you not hear your grandmother's sisters, brothers lost in this way? The fever of families systematically torn apart boils deep in your veins. Do not turn away when we were all once entangled in the same chains. And you do not get to sing our songs lamenting of generations of lost children if you cannot sing for this land's Bunduka sock spirits kindred. And yes, I can hear it, it's true. The Irish were also enslaved, and the no blacks, no dogs, no Irish attitudes at times remains. And yes, once we were caged and chained in the same prison, and we were dispossessed and beaten by the same British colonialism. But there came a day where your white light skin did become your privilege. Your accent slightly faded and your Irishness somehow forgiven. And I know that the cost is that your ancestors had to hide their culture, but in return they were given the keys to climb the white man's ladder on the rungs of the backs of their indigenous cellmates. That was the only way for your families to carve out their safe space, become the colonizer or die. And although you've been taught you were the good colonizer, that's a fucking lie. There's no such thing. The colony has to be torn apart. I'm calling on you. I'm saying it's your duty to take part. The indigenous are only 3% of this population. Those claiming Irish are 30% together. 33 and a third makes us a fucking revolution. You're the daughters of rebels. You are the sons of poets. Remember who you are. Your ancestors, they know it. You're the daughters of rebels, the sons of poets. Remember who you are. We call you now. We call you now. So I demand you feel into your genetic coding. The same one you claim makes you cry when you hear me singing. Feel into your feet as a tap to the Kyoalagas crack. Remember your ancestors' past were once crushed under the same Union Jack. Now I demand you hear the tears shed for your ancestors' stories. I demand you hear these same cries and the modern indigenous imploring. Shame, 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 it has taken us this long. But unraveling is hard. Colonization, it holds on strong. You are our lost Irish sons and daughters. The daughters of rebels, sons of poets, you were the agitators. Once silenced, you now have a voice, and I'm begging you, use it louder. And I promise you'll make all in Ireland and your ancestors even prouder. The last few years we've danced long forgotten jigs every time Ireland launched itself forward, unshackling, voting yes to freedoms by letting the truth be heard. Your truth has always been woven between these two shores. We send you strength, unclived solace is yours. So whatever percentage of you feels Irish in your genetic claim, honor Ireland by launching this land forward in yours and our name. Let us dance this dance again, but this time alongside our freed indigenous cellmates, allies we were from the start till so-called Australia tried to re-educate. So I summon you now as Irish, gather round the fire. I call upon you now to reignite the flame now required. You're the daughters of rebels. You are the sons of poets. Remember who you are. Your ancestors, they know it. You're the daughters of rebels, the sons of poets. Remember who you are. You're our daughters, you're our sons. Remember who you are. We call you now. Leave them in dirt and niche, we call you now. Leave them in dirt and niche.